Greetings, TCAPS teachers. Welcome back to Closing the Loop, our series of vodcasts where we continue to unpack items that are really relevant to you and your day-to-day work with our students. And so we're talking a lot about teaching evaluation. And in my last vodcast, I really pointed out that I believe that the reason why you went into teaching and the reason why most teachers go into teaching is because they really want to have an impact on the outcomes, on the learning outcomes of students. They really want to have a positive impact, not just to get a rating on an evaluation scale. And so I wanted to explore a little bit about the priorities and the kind of thinking that goes into planning for effective lessons that are going to have the kind of impact that you want to have. And so I've brought some props here today to help me with this illustration. So I have some birdseed, an empty jar, and some tennis balls. And so the jar represents your lesson, maybe as a teacher. It might, for a principal, it might represent an entire school day, could represent your attention as a classroom teacher. The birdseed might represent the things that you have to do as a classroom teacher that really won't contribute to exponential growth and learning, but that you might have to do, like the taking of attendance. They might represent low-level learning activities that would keep kids busy, but maybe not lead to the kind of return that you want on your time. And so word searches, different puzzles that you might have kids involved with. The game of 7-Up is one that my high school teachers used to use. And so if you're not careful, an entire lesson time or school day fills up with birdseed, the stuff that's not going to lead to the kind of return in exponential growth that you want to have in your students. And so then the things that will, the Marzano high yield strategy that we've begun to talk about with principals, or the stuff from Hattie's work, can't fit in. And no matter how hard I press right now, because I've allowed the jar to fill up with birdseed, I can't get the most important stuff in. And so let's take a look at what backward lesson design, or beginning with the end in mind, using backward lesson design might lead to. And so you start with the most important things. You start with a Hattie visible thinking strategy or a Marzano high yield strategy. These are things that principals will unpack with you further. We've begun our discussions related to those kinds of strategies with principals already. And so then you already have them in the jar. And so then the birdseed, the taking of attendance, the making of a lunch choice, all of the different procedural things, relaying information to students or parents, those kinds of things still need to get done. They're still important. They're still a part of the school experience. But the other things, the low-level learning activities might remain in the jar. Those are a form of waste, and those would remain in the cup and not get in the jar at all. And so I have here now, I have my most important things because I've used some planning ahead of time. They are in the jar, along with some other things that go along with making a school experience positive for a child. But now I've been able to have that kind of impact that I'm looking for as a professional teacher. And so in future vodcasts, we'll continue to really explore the Marzano high yield strategies and John Hattie's work with visible thinking. So we really begin to understand those things that research has clearly shown for us lead to the kind of great returns that you want to have on the time, the limited amount of time that you have with students. We've begun to have those discussions with principals, and so now we're closing that feedback loop with you and really beginning to dive into that in more detail. Thanks for tuning in.